certainty of death, small chance of success. What are we waiting for?
Fellas, I feel this is my lucky day.
Brilliant.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Rankum. It's going to be a fun one today. We're going to be talking about Matt Damon movies in conjunction with the release of the Air that's just come out. And we've got a great panel here. Over here, we've got Jonathan Caro. John, how's it going?
You call me John Hunting today. I'm a genius. I'm a mathematical genius. I'm doing pretty well. It's been a while since I've appeared on one of these episodes, and let's talk about one of my, I would say one of my favorite actors. He has a versatile filmography, an interesting one, and it's going to be interesting to see what films we'll talk about today regarding him. So let's do it.
Also here, we've got Stephen Shepherd. Stephen, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. Yeah, it's cool that we're doing this like a week after we did the, Ben versus Matt on Tournament Fights Versus. So it's cool that I get to do this for just Matt Damon.
Also here, we've got JD. JD, how's it going?
It's going. I'm very excited to talk about Matt Damon today because it's kind of fascinating. He's one of the most well-known actors today, but he's also kind of like in some ways underappreciated, just from the standpoint everybody thinks it's like people just like kind of he's there and it kind of gets thrown off, and I'm really excited to talk about it today.
And last but not least, we've got Stacey. Stacey, how's it going?
It's going very good, Malcolm. Usually people want me to stop talking about Matt Damon movies, so this is super exciting.
But with that being said, how this works, we each go around in the panel and nominate a Matt Damon movie we think belongs on a top 12 list, and then everyone will say yes or no to it, and then once we have a short list of 12, we then rank them. So going to go to Jonathan first. What is your first movie you're going to bring up?
We're going to get the easy one out of the way, all right? Because this is obviously one of his best movies, if not his best, both acting-wise and also screenplay-wise. Good Will Hunting. Look, everybody knows that he's great in it. The movie's great. Obviously, he has some infamous scenes dramatically with Ben Affleck, Minnie Driver, and of course Robin Williams, that great bench scene, that one take scene, mostly one take scene. And it's one of those rewatchable movies that make you feel inspired to do something for sure. And yeah, let's just get it out of the way. Good Will Hunting.
Stephen, what do you say about Good Will Hunting?
Nah, it sucks. I'm just kidding. Obviously, this is probably one of the favorites to be number one, and it's for a reason. It's a great movie, and it won the Matt versus Ben versus Tournament Fights. So obviously, it's got to be here too. So yes.
JD, what do you say about Good Will Hunting?
I'm going to be overruled, but I'm just going to make things interesting anyways. I have a somewhat different. It's fine. It's a fine movie. Kira knows my opinion. We've
You're
had
dead inside
before. Steve knows my opinion on this. I think it's a real. I like the relationship between Will and Robin Williams in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The romance for me, I have never bought the romance, and that's a big part of the movie. So for me personally, it's just not one of my 12. But I'm going to be overruled, and it's fine. But I'm going to say no just to make it interesting.
Oh, I can't hear
You're
you,
muted.
Malcolm.
You're muted.
Stacey, what do you say about Good Will Hunting?
Absolutely. Easy yes. No brainer. Sorry, JD.
It's fine. Overruled.
Yeah, this is actually one that I watched for the first time this week. Because it's probably one of my biggest blind spots for Matt Damon, and it's just one that I just hadn't quite got around to getting fine time to watch. But I loved it. It was great, and yeah, that's easily a yes for me. Anyway, so Good Will Hunting makes the list. Stephen, what is your first pick?
Uh, all right, I'll go with my name. I my name is Roy Miller. I think it's a movie that it's Green Zone, and it teams him up with. I'm sure there'll be at least one or two Bourne movies on this list. But this is another movie that Matt Damon did with Paul Greengrass, and I I think no one does the handheld shaky cam better than Paul Greengrass. It's slick, relentlessly paced, uh, just really gripping. Matt Damon, I think, gives a really commanding performance, and I do think it's underrated. So, and also, I don't know, not everyone has probably even seen it, so I don't know if it'll make the list, but I love it. So I'm bringing up Green Zone.
JD, what do you say about Green Zone?
It's here's what I'll say. I do think it's underrated, but it's underrated because it's the Bourne movies are better. Well, 3 out of the 5 Bourne movies are better. So it's not really underrated. So I'm going to say no. I think it's good, but it's not top 12.
Stacey, what do you say about Green Zone?
I mean, I think it's more underseen than underrated. I just don't think enough people have seen it to have it properly rated. I do think it's a really good movie and it's a really strong performance, but I think there are a lot better. So I am, as far as the top 12 goes, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, this is one that I watched for the first time for this, and yeah, I think it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. And on my personal list, it just sort of cracked my top 12, so I'm going to say yes. Jonathan, what do you say about Green Zone?
Up to me. So early. Too early. And also for Matt Damon movies. Okay. So it has been a while since I've seen Green Zone. I think basically around the time it came out, I rented it from Blockbuster. Blockbuster, I miss it. But Green Zone was an interesting film. I thought it was a little predictable at times as to where it's going, but it did catch my interest. But unfortunately, it has been a while since I've seen it. I need to rewatch it. But him going tete-a-tete, even though we don't see him with this Guy Pearce, or not Guy Pearce, Greg Kinnear in certain scenes, those are kind of intense. And I believe Jason Isaacs is in that movie as well, and Amy Ryan, I think. So
Brendan Gleeson too.
And Brendan Gleeson is in it as well. But it is an interesting watch. Stacey's right. It is underseen because we compare this movie to other Paul Greengrass, Matt Damon films, the Bourne films. But I will say this. I'm going to go no, but also I do recommend it. I think it is an underseen and underappreciated film. Yeah. And also I need to rewatch it. So, but it is a good choice.
Also, you all forgot George W. Bush appears in it as well. But JD, what's the next movie you're going to bring up?
Well, I'm going to go for the best comedy of 2015. I'm going to go to Martian. Well, that was a joke. Obviously, it's a sci-fi drama. But that is my personal number one. I just think it is our in my opinion, it's our like modern day Apollo 11 or Apollo 13, excuse me. Just from the standpoint of it's, something goes wrong in outer space and it's about everybody trying to work together to bring people home. I adore this movie. And I think I would have given Matt Damon the Oscar that year. It was the Revenant year, where Leo won for the Revenant. But in a vacuum, I think Matt Damon gave the best performance. There are so many like exposition scenes that are also simultaneously used for punchlines. For example, the one I always point to is the one where they're talking about maritime law in outer space and how that works, and then it builds up to Mark Watney, space pirate, and a lot of actors couldn't simultaneously make that engaging while also at the same time build to a joke. I think very few actors do that, and I think it's a great movie, and he carries so many chunks of it. I just love this movie. It's a great movie that I watch multiple times a year.
Stacey, what do you say about The Martian?
And this is another easy yes. This movie I also adore. It always battles with Good Will Hunting for what I rank as maybe not my absolute favorite, but the best to me Matt Damon movies. Yeah, everything JD said is accurate. It's just it's so much more compelling and so much more fun to watch than it has any right to be based on what it is. And for that, I love it.
Yeah, I saw The Martian for the first time this year, and this is one that, for whatever reason, I just miss at cinemas. I just can't. Maybe just didn't appeal to me or something. I don't know, but it's one that I definitely loved, and I mean, it's one of those ones like the bits and pieces in this I can actually see like kind of why maybe it ended up in comedy in the Golden Globes myself. Like, there is some good sort of comedic sort of areas in it, but genre aside, I'm still going to give this a yes. Jonathan, what do you say about The Martian?
This is one of the easier yeses. I do agree. It is at points a comedy. I mean, what I liked about Ridley Scott's direction is that he doesn't take it as seriously, compared to I think maybe another movie we'll talk about. But I like that they go for the lighter approach of this situation of a person stranded on a planet. So even though there's drama involved and also aptitude involved regarding how to get home or how to get rescued, whatever, it is funny at times. I mean, the disco scenes are hilarious, and then when he finds out about his crew not knowing that he was trapped at first or whatever, I mean, there's a golden response to it, and he basically curses in front of the nation. It's a fantastic moment. So, but Damon does give one of his best performances, and it is one of his best movies. So, 100% yes.
And Stephen, what do you say about The Martian?
I mean, there are humorous moments, sure, but I wouldn't. It's definitely not a comedy, and I wouldn't even call it lighthearted either. What it is it's a crowd pleaser, and I think it's a great crowd pleaser, with moments of humor, moments of frustration, and moments that make you want to cheers. It's just like I said, it's just a great crowd pleaser. So it's and it's not like Castaway where that was only Tom Hanks. I mean, because obviously there's a huge ensemble in this movie, but they're all great. Matt Damon's great. So yeah, definitely yes.
But with that, we go over to Stacy. Stacy, what is your next nomination?
Okay. Let's see. There's like 3 that I'm trying to choose between, but I'll go to the one that's actually next on my list after The Martian and Good Will Hunting, and that is Talented Mr. Ripley, a wonderful, I guess you'd call it like a slow burn suspense thriller. One of his best performances, easily. Just a crime he wasn't Oscar nominated for it, and Jude Law was. I will never not be mad about that. Yeah, no, fantastic. He's creepy. He does all the impressions. He actually sings My Funny Valentine. He's not lip syncing to somebody else singing it. And the movie is interesting. Like you Philip Seymour Hoffman is great in it. Jude Law is good in it. Don't get me wrong, just not better. And it's just a weird serial. Well, he's not really a serial killer, I guess. It's more of crimes because of purpose. But yeah, I think it's great. It's definitely up there as one of my favorites, and I think it belongs on any top list of Matt Damon's.
Yeah, it's been ages since I've seen Talented Mr. Ripley. I remember liking it enough, but unfortunately, I'm going to say no to it. It just didn't crack my personal top 12. Jonathan, what do you say about Talented Mr. Ripley?
Another 100% yes. Matt Damon does create one of the more interesting, quiet monsters because you just don't see it coming. It's just that you anticipate Ripley's next move. You know, when the next problem arises for him. He's quite deceptive. He's quite childish, manipulative. And we got to praise Anthony Minghella's direction. He treats it like a Hitchcockian thriller at times.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I do agree about Jude Law. And like, when I rewatched it, not actually recently, Jude Law, I thought like, okay, he's good, but supporting actor nomination, interesting. I mean, I'm not going to spoil what happens. He's not in it that long. I think, in my opinion, if it were supporting, I think Philip Seymour Hoffman should. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Cate Blanchett, Hoffman. I mentioned he has a great, a great opening line of dialogue that made me laugh, and I think nobody could deliver it as well as Philip Seymour Hoffman. But it is a remarkable psychological thriller. So 100% yes. It's one of the more rich movies of 1999 and also his filmography.
Stephen, what do you say about the Talented Mr. Ripley?
It's an easy yes. It's really interesting and fascinating and compelling watching him insinuating himself into other people's lives and taking over them. And as far as whether Matt Damon should have been nominated, that's tricky just because 1999 was a great year for movies.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, Jim Carrey in Man on the Moon wasn't nominated that year, and I think he should have been nominated. So it's, you know, and that was the year where the people that were nominated, I mean, were, you know, Kevin Spacey in American Beauty, which I know is probably problematic now, but back then it was, you know, an obvious choice, and Denzel Washington for The Hurricane and Russell Crowe for The Insider. So, you know, I don't know if I would say, but it's still, the movie itself is definitely a yes.
JD, what do you say about the Talented Mr. Ripley?
It's an easy yes. I actually rewatched this for this. And you know, I was kind of you know, when I actually watched this for the first time around the time it came on home video, like in the early 2000. Like I was allowed to watch it because, you know, it was that movie that was controversial and everybody was talking, or at least people in where I lived were talking about it and saying, "Oh, have you seen Talented Mr. Ripley? It's so controversial and bonkers that, you know, even my parents, who wouldn't have normally like seen that kind of movie, rented it and allowed me to watch it. And I rewatched it for this. And yeah, Matt Damon is amazing. I think the reason Philip Seymour Hoffman wasn't nominated and Jude Law was nominated is Jude Law is the more showier role. It's the more showier role, and they're each not in it for that much. Both of them are only in like for a few scenes. But yeah, Matt Damon, I had to look at all 5 nominees, but I could see the argument for him getting nominated for Best Actor for that. It's a great movie.
Yeah, I mean, also, I think there's probably a good chance that Philip Seymour Hoffman and Jude Law split the votes, because the other film that were nominated in supporting, I agree with them being there. So I think it's just one of those ones. I think Jude Law probably just had that little bit of an edge. But anyway, with that talented misdirect makes the list, it's up to me. And I'm going to go for this one because I think it's a really good wrestling. It's definitely one of the what I'd argue is probably one of the best remakes out there as well. I'm bringing out True Grit. I think Matt Damon is great in True Grit, and the movie itself I just think was just really good. Like Jeff Bridges playing the John Wayne character. You had Haley Steinfeld in there, and it's just it's different. I think I have to sort of, without looking at my Coen Brothers list, I think I've probably almost at the top of my Coen Brothers ranking as well. But yeah, I think True Grit is a great movie, and I think it definitely deserves to be here. But Jonathan, what do you say about True Grit?
This is a tough one. Okay, I like the movie, but I like it more because of Jeff Bridges' and Haley Steinfeld's performances. I think these two are like the crux of the film, of the remake, and yeah, I would say it's better than the original. In terms of Matt Damon performances, boy, it's kind of like in the back side of his performances, in my opinion, because I think he just doesn't stand out compared to those two performances. It is a tough call because I have the movie in my honorable mentions, and boy, I'm not going to be mad if it makes it, but I'm going to go a slight no.
Stephen, what do you say about True Grit?
I'll give it a slight no too, just because I like it. Even like I did really enjoy it. I didn't quite love it. Although I will say I did find Matt Damon's character a little bit more enjoyable than Jeff Bridges, to be honest, actually. But I mean, they're both good, but I do actually slightly prefer Damon in it. But he is more of a supporting character. I mean, because Jeff Bridges is the lead and Haley Steinfeld's the lead. But yeah, it's gonna be no, just because it's a movie I like but don't love.
JD, what do you say about True Grit?
I'm going to say yes. I rewatched it for this. I'm kind of surprised about I forgot how much Matt Damon is actually in it. Like, he's actually in it a lot. He's almost as much in it as Jeff Bridges is. He actually is I consider Jeff Bridges and Matt Damon co-leads to Haley Steinfeld's lead actress rewatching it, because he gets his own introduction scene. He gets introduced right after Jeff Bridges does, and they have a Haley Steinfeld, like, it's the trio of them, like, and it's about misjudging, LaBeouf is a little bit of a dick at the beginning of it, and they, as a result, Matt LaBeouf and Haley Steinfeld's character have a antagonistic relationship, but they grow to like each other. And yeah, I was actually surprised about how much, upon rewatching it, how much of a part he actually had in it. So it's a yes for me, and I really liked it. It made my 12.
Stacey, what do you say about True Grit?
that I don't want to have to make the deciding vote.
Now you know how I feel.
It's a good movie. I also don't love it. I think there are definitely better. There are definitely ones that I enjoy more, even if they're not technically better movies. So I think I'm going to say no.
And True Grit doesn't make the list. We can move over to Jonathan for the next nomination.
This is a tough one. A lot of good Damon movies, by the way. I was doing some research. I had like 19 or 20 contention. I'll go with the coolest movie of them all. He's in an ensemble, but it is a cool film. Ocean's 11. Yeah, he's the rookie of the group. Of course, he's introduced to this crew who's there to steal a lot of money in a vault from 3 casinos run by Terry Benedict, played by Andy Garcia. But he's with Danny Ocean and Rusty, Clooney and Pitt, and he basically learns the ropes. And he has some interesting moments in the second half of the film as he's in the during the robbery. So I think it is a very interesting performance and a very rewatchable, cool film. And of course, he's in the next 2 movies, but I picked the best of the bunch. And yeah, Ocean's 11. Let's put this on the list.
Stephen, what do you say about Ocean's 11?
It's another tough one because I do love the movie, and it is in my top 15, but it's not quite. It didn't quite make my top 12. I'll give it a slight no, but but I absolutely wouldn't mind it making the list as well. If I don't mind if I end up getting outvoted at all.
JD, what do you say about Ocean's 11?
Yeah, it's another one I rewatched for this. I'm gonna give it a yes. It made my 12. It's an interesting how he's even like introduced, because like they're, it's like the whole dichotomy is kind of like, okay, Brad Pitt and George Clooney are like the established stars, and then like they're gathering like they're like they're like
Crew.
like jobbers that they have for every job, and then they're like, do we need one more? We need one more. And it's like they're kind of introducing him. It's like what I like to call the movie where they're introducing the next thing, like the next big one that they're trying to make their next big star. Even though he's broken out at this point, this is like this is their dichotomy. Is like, we're bringing him into the club. He's going to be the part of the trio of the established. And I was like at rewatching, I'm like, they're really pushing this hard, and I'm actually really enjoying kind of this dynamic. So yes.
Stacey, what do you say about Ocean's 11?
Absolutely. I think it is just such a fun movie. Yes, it's ensemble. No, it's not like a Matt Damon showpiece, but I think we're just going by movies, not necessarily performances here. And as far as Matt Damon movies go, it is an excellent choice.
Thank you.
So much fun. If anybody somehow hasn't seen Ocean's 11, go see Ocean's 11. You won't regret it.
The remake.
The remake, yes.
Yeah.
The original was actually kind of dull.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ocean's 11 is an easy yes for me as well. And like, I love it. I mean, the sequel's even just as good.
Yeah, I like it.
And so, yeah, but Ocean's 11 does make the list, and we move over to Stephen.
Okay. Obviously, at least one Bourne movie has to make the list. I'm not gonna go with the Bourne movie that I think is the best. because I'm gonna go with the Born Supremacy instead of over Ultimatum, just because I think it's an the thing about the thing that made me choose Supremacy over Ultimatum for this list is that I think Damon probably gives the strongest performance in out of all the movies in this one, with what happens to him and in the beginning of the movie, and also at the end of the movie when he confronts the daughter of the two people that he killed from earlier. Um, so even though I do think the Bourne Ultimatum is the best Bourne movie, I'm actually going with the Bourne Supremacy.
JD, what do you say about the Bourne Supremacy?
I'm going to say no, because here's the thing. This is the top 12 Matt Damon movies. It's not the best top 12 Matt Damon performances. And you just said it. Ultimatum is it's the best Bourne movie. And that's definitely going to be brought up, if not by me at some point. I'm assuming somebody else will. So yeah, I'm gonna say no, because I think it has to. Ultimatum is the ultimate one. It's in the title. Ultimate is in its title. Ultimate, no. So it's no. I have to.
Stacey, what do you say about the Bourne Supremacy?
I really like the Bourne franchise as a whole, but I have not revisited them in quite a while. I mean, the first one I've seen a couple times, but I think the sequels I might have only seen in theaters, so they kind of get jumbled up for me. So I'm gonna say no, only because I'm not really differentiating them very well. So in my head, Bourne Identity would represent the Bourne series.
See, here's the thing. I do think Bourne Supremacy is the better Bourne movie with stuff Matt Damon.
It was going to come to me.
Jonathan, what do you say about the Bourne Supremacy?
Wow. Interesting. Okay. Two times. Actually, an interesting way that Steven brought a mood. Let me make the list. I did put a Bourne film on my list. Unfortunately, this is not the one. It is a good movie. The fourth one, it's okay. The Jason Bourne, it's okay. It's fine. But I think there are two better movies than Supremacy. I like Supremacy, but I think that to me it's a little forgettable compared to those two. But I think Identity has the more controlled action, the better origin story. Actually, one of the better origin stories. And then Ultimatum has some remarkable action, especially with that killer conclusion. I'm gonna go no, but I think this is not going to be the last time we'll talk about a Bourne film.
But JD, what is the next movie you're going to bring up?
Since I do think Bourne's going to come up at some point again, I'm going to go with, for now, I'm going to go with Contagion. Here's the thing. I actually saw this for the first time during the pandemic, COVID pandemic. Which is not the way you should watch this.
Why?
But a lot of people did.
That's true.
Surprised how accurate it was. Like it foretold a lot, and like slight for people who haven't seen, slight spoilers. So Matt Damon plays the husband to the person who ends up being patient zero for the virus, but like. It's an ensemble piece, but like he's leading huge chunks of it, and like he is like the main lead of one of the threads, and just seeing him being scared, like concerned for his daughter, like him being like scared out of his mind. Like it's just it's and then the government and how they dealing with it, and like they know absolutely nothing. And then even like the stuff like with the thing with, I think it was was it Shuichi who was the government guy?
No,
Or
Lawrence Fishburne.
it was Fishburne. Oh,
Yeah.
I get confused. It was Fishburne. Even like him, like that there was an incident where somebody like who was supposed to be like quarantining goes out and like drives 400 miles, and then during the pandemic the same thing happens like with another high-ranking government health official. It's scary how much it predicted, and I think it's a brilliant movie, and it's an underrated Matt Damon performance.
Stacey, what do you say about Contagion?
This is tough because I do really like the movie, and I think that Matt is great in it, and he's just got like the sweetest storyline with his daughter in this movie, and it brings a lot of heart to the movie. I'm torn because again, there's ones I think are better and ones I like better, but I'm not sure those ones will have been seen by everybody. So, damn, I'll say yes. I'll let it go to everybody. I'll say yes.
Yeah, I mean, I also watched Contagion around the pandemic. But
We're screwed up.
yeah. I mean, I'm probably going to give it a rewatch at some stage, like without the pandemic sort of in that mind, because but I mean, it brings back Jude Law and Gwyneth Paltrow from Telling Miss Ripley. But
Wow.
But yeah, I'm going to say no. I really didn't like this that much. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad movie. Like, there's only 2 Matt Damon movies that I've seen that I've given less than 3 stars. So yeah, so I mean, the majority of Matt Damon movies I actually do like, but it's just didn't make my top 12. So I'm going to say no. Jonathan, what do you say about Contagion?
Interesting. Okay, yeah. Selfishly, I did watch it during the pandemic. Yeah. It is kind of creepy how realistic the situation was in comparison to 2020, of course. But yeah, it is eerily scary now, and I think it is quite. It's kind of brilliant from Steven Soderbergh to make a movie kind of like this. I mean, like, compared to Outbreak, it is a more theatrical. Outbreak is just more theatrical, more Hollywood style, and more local because it involves a monkey. But here, I just never thought of that. That Talented Mr. Ripley reunion there. Wow. But this is interesting. Stacey brought it up. Jude's Law's subplot is the worst plot of the movie. The blogging, and it just was. It was all right, but I do agree with her that Matt Damon's plot involving his daughter, it is a sweet plot, sweet storyline, and he takes command of the film as it ends with him and how the whole pandemic started.
Yes.
Movie, and I think it's remarkable. Oh, by the way, Cliff Martinez's score, hypnotic. So now on my list, boy, it's a toss-up between 4. Every one of them. Look, I rewatched this movie a lot. It is it's slowly becoming brilliant. Yeah.
Stephen, what do you say about Contagion?
What's funny, I did not watch this during the pandemic, but I did watch the other one that Jonathan brought up that also apparently was watched in the pandemic, Outbreak. And even though I think obviously Contagion is the more realistic depiction, I found Outbreak to be a more entertaining movie. Even though I'm not, I like Contagion. but it does have kind of a cultness, I thought, to it
Mhm.
that why it didn't quite pull me in that, but I still like it. But because of that, I'd give it a slight no.
But if that Contagion does make the list, and we go back over to Stacey. Stacey, what is your next nomination?
My next one is another one that often vies for the title of my favorite Matt Damon movie. It's definitely underseen. I think it's one of his many somewhat inspired by a true story movies that blend drama and comedy so well, and that is The Informant. I love everything about this movie. I can tell that not everybody does. I think it's great. It makes me laugh. It shocks me. The first time I saw it, I just couldn't believe how much things kept getting upped. The stakes kept getting upped, how deeper in he was getting himself. I've read and heard that it is a great depiction of bipolar disorder. I can't say how true that is. That's just what I've been, seen online and whatnot. But I think it's funny. I think it's one of his best performances. I think that it just kind of fires on all cylinders for me. So I don't really expect it to get on the list, I'll be honest. But it was 4 on my list, and the other 3 are gone.
This is one I've been meaning to get around to actually watching at some stage. I just haven't got around to it. So yeah, I just haven't seen it. Jonathan, what do you say about The Informant?
Yeah, this is one of the rare few that I have not seen. Yeah, I have to abstain.
Stephen, what do you say about Stephen? What do you say about The Informant?
I'm actually I would actually be surprised if this hadn't made it because a lot of people like it, and I always thought it was kind of overrated.
That was mixed.
Yeah, it's actually my least favorite Steven Soderbergh movie, but
Thanks.
he's made a lot of great movies, and I think I would have liked it more if it was told seriously and not as a comedy, but I wasn't a fan, so I'd say no.
JD, what would you have said about The Informant?
I would have given it a yes, 100% yes. I rewatched it for this, and I was amazed at how I think the humor actually works. The fact that it's a satire works in its favor because, like, I was kind of rewatching it, shocked. Like, okay, so the whole voiceover is just like his random thoughts. Like a scene's going on, and there's this very serious, like investigation going on, and they're talking about wiretapping, how the pirates work, and he's just talking about his groceries and like what he's going to do later in the day, and that's when you're dealing with mental disorders, that's kind of how it works. Is like your mind just goes to random places, and like you're just doing everything to kind of get out of the current situation you're in. So you just move, like your threads are constantly moving. I really actually really enjoyed it, so I would have given it a yes.
But with that, it moves over to me for my next nomination, and he's been in a few Kevin Smith movies, but there's only really one in which he's basically a lead in, and arguably there's probably another one that he's actually got a bigger role in, but I'm bringing out my favorite of the bunch, which is Dogma. I think Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are just great when you pair them up in any movie, and just them being two fallen angels in this, and just the rest of the cast that you have there. You got Alanis Morissette as God. You've got Alan Rickman as Metatron.
Metatron.
Yeah, Chris Rock's in there, and
with us.
bunch of great people there. And yeah, it's just one that I always enjoy watching. And always get enjoyment out of every time I watch it. Jonathan, what do you say about Dogma?
Okay, I had a hectic week, so I didn't have time to watch as many Matt Damon films as I could to rewatch him or watch him for the first time. So I only watched very few for the first time. This is one of them, Dogma. Now, I'm kind of hot and cold on Kevin Smith movies, and either you gravitate towards them or you do not. As for Dogma, I laughed out loud like 4 or 5 times, and Matt Damon has a scene that killed me, and I think it involves a bus. Let's just say that the way that Kevin Smith just photographs his action in that movie, just a deadpan action right there. It just, and it's a kind of a justifiable one, but it's just it made me laugh so hard. And but also his arc is very interesting because he's an angel that is initially up to no good, but he wants to redeem himself in the end. Unfortunately, he does not. Mild spoilers there, but it's a funny movie, and I was surprised as to how much I had a blast with this film. And yeah, this is I think this is a funny movie. This made an appearance on my top 12 because this is one I would rewatch again. Unfortunately, it's very hard to find on physical media for sure. There's some rights going on, like ugly rights fighting going on.
But it's free on YouTube.
It is on YouTube for free. It's not a great quality, but it is there. Yeah, it doesn't take itself seriously. It just makes fun of the speculation and our learnings about religion. And Alan Rickman is basically the MVP in my opinion. He's not in it as much, but he's in it. But Damon and Affleck are terrific together in this movie, and I'm gonna give it a yes for this movie. Dogma was hilarious.
Stephen, what do you say about Dogma?
This is another one that's teetering on the edge on making my list. But since Green Zone didn't make it, and there's a couple other movies on my list that I don't think will make it, I'll give Dogma a yes. It's tied with another Kevin Smith movie as my favorite Kevin Smith movie that Matt Damon is in, but it's just a cameo. So I don't think anybody's gonna bring that one up.
JD, what do you say about Dogma?
So I've seen a lot of Matt Damon movies, but there are a slight handful that I have not. And like John, like Caro, I only had a limited amount of time to rewatch certain ones and watch certain ones for the first time. And Kevin Smith, outside of the Clerks movies, just like Caro said, he either does it for you or he doesn't. And the Clerks movies were the only ones that ever really did it for me. And everyone that I've watched outside of Clerks hasn't really done it for me. So it was just low on the rewatch list. So or the first time list. So it just, unfortunately, I couldn't get to it.
And Stacey, what would you have said about Dogma?
I've seen all of Kevin Smith's movies as well as Matt Damon's. It is my favorite Kevin Smith movie. It jockeys around in those top 5 movies I have that all kind of change positions in an arbitrary order 1 through 5 because I just love them all so much. So it would have been a definite yes. I almost said it my last 2 rounds.
But with that, Dogma makes the list, and we move over to Stephen. Stephen, what is your next nomination? Wait, no, do we move over to Jonathan?
Okay. Now this is going to come to a surprise for Malcolm because there are a few times where he has brought this movie up, and I surprisingly said no to, or a slight no to. But I did rewatch this just to concentrate on Matt Damon's performance. And I'm going to bring up The Departed. Okay. So yeah, this is a great film. Obviously, it has a great ensemble. Yes, but I focused more on Matt Damon. I like DiCaprio more in this ensemble. I think he gives the better performance, a stronger performance. But I focused on Matt Damon because this time around, he creates such a quietly scummy character where you start to kind of sympathize with him in the beginning, and then you start to hate him more and more and more. The the actions he does in this film to get to find himself, to find the rat, and the way he wants to like hedge his bets to cover himself, it basically it becomes a very interesting fall from grace for sure. um Starting with the scene where he talks to Costello in code to get rid of the tail, and then it gets to the scene where the second half becomes crazy, where spoiler alert, where he tails Captain Queenan, played by Martin Sheen, and then the crew finds out, and then they kill him, and then it becomes a ruckus. So I think Matt Damon's performance is quite underrated because that year they focused a lot more on DiCaprio, Nicholson, and Wahlberg. I mean, for some reason, Wahlberg was nominated for the Oscar, but I think Damon is really good here as a character who's basically a great BSer. Basically to cover his bets, and him with the scenes between him and DiCaprio, they're incredibly tense. Both the phone scene, the scene with the phone, the scene where he meets DiCaprio for the first time, and then the scene on the roof is just, you may not know where it's going the first time you see it. So I'm going to nominate The Departed, and I think that Damon's performance is quite underrated.
Stephen, what do you say about The Departed?
Yeah, Matt Damon is usually a very likable guy, and he is likable in some scenes in this movie, but especially as the movie goes on, you see that this is probably one of the more despicable people that Matt Damon has played,
Mm-hmm.
and he's great. And this is my favorite Martin Scorsese movie, so obviously it's an easy yes for me.
JD, what do you say about The Departed?
It's interesting. So that year was interesting. Speaking about the Matt Damon of it all, so they were put it like in how like Mark Wahlberg got nominated. So like I remember distinctly they were doing Matt Damon for lead, Jack Nicholson and Leo were both supporting. So they were pushing those three. Yes, they were. Yes, 100%. They when you did, I remember the like for your consideration, and it was Leonardo DiCaprio, best supporting actor.
Oh, you know why I think that is?
Blood
because
Diamond.
It's Blood Diamond. Yeah.
They were trying to push both of them for best supporting actor, and that's why. And everybody was like, "No, Leo is a main actor," and that's why Matt Damon didn't get in. That was why Leo got in for Blood Diamond, because he was campaigning for supporting. And that's why the surprise Blood Diamond nomination came through. But yes, I agree. It's Matt Damon. It's one of the few times he plays the main. He's the main villain. Let's see what it is. He is actually the main villain because Jack Nicholson gets the surprise death halfway through. Like he is the main antagonist. Like it's revealed that Costello, like Jack Nicholson is the informant. As soon as they do, they kill him. And like for the last third, Jack Nicholson's not in it. So he's Damon's the main antagonist, and it's surprising to see him in an antagonist role. He doesn't do it that often, and he's really delightful in it, using his Matt Damon charm to like charm you for bits of it, and then slowly, and then using that charm to manipulate your likeness, and then like double crossing you. Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing performance. It's a yes. It's a yes.
Stacey, what do you say about The Departed?
I've seen it a couple times. It has been a while. It's not something I can really talk about in depth, but it is the next one on my list. We're just checking them right down. So yes, so I say yes to The Departed. If you guys want to see Matt Damon as the antagonist, he is that more often than you think. They're just not movies anyone sees, but I can tell you some after if you're interested, because he does it better than than you think, because he is so likable that when he is the antagonist, it's a little bit jarring at first, I think, because he is charming and likable. He does it great in The Departed. It always made me a little sad because I like him so much that he is such an ass and so good at it in that movie. But yeah, easy yes.
Wasn't he a antagonist in School Ties?
Yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, The Departed would have easily been a easy yes for me as well. I love the movie. It's great, and Matt Damon's great in it. Based on what everyone said.
I make the joke that it has basically Jimmy Kimmel's favorite scene of all time. Yeah, he will watch that last scene on a
Are
loop.
the Jimmy Kimmel clips up for nomination? You want to see part of it,
They need to put
It's going to take me a while.
right?
That one out.
They need to put that together in like they need to put together like all of that and just like make it movie length. Like
Oh yeah, in chronological order. That'd be fantastic.
And then just the whole episode is the middle portion of it. Yeah.
I just want to know when this started and how it started.
It was Jimmy Kimmel's first episode, and he didn't know what to say at the end. He was closing out. He didn't know what to say, and he said, "I'm sorry, Matt Damon, we ran out of time." And then he just kept doing it until it became a thing, and then Matt joked back. I mean, it's all a fake feud. They're friends in real life, but it's hysterical. I love it so much.
It does have a paternity this joke in there as well. This joke.
But if that, Stephen, we go to you for your next nomination.
Oh, okay, since we got The Departed, I'll go with the one that he's not the lead role, although he is in it more than I think people give him credit for. He is the title character of the movie. He's only in the last hour, but it's a 3-hour movie. And I think it may not necessarily be the best Matt Damon movie, but it's the best movie that Matt Damon is in, and that is Saving Private Ryan.
JD, what do you say about Saving Private Ryan?
This is a tough call for me. It really, really is, because I do think that it's probably the top 12 films that Matt Damon is in. But if we're talking top 12 Matt Damon movies, I think how distracting he is in Saving Private Ryan, to me, kind of actually takes away from that movie at times, because I feel like, I find it distracting that he's in the movie, like, especially in hindsight. Like, I know we're not supposed to take hindsight into consideration, but I find that whole last section distracting. So I'm gonna make things interesting and give it a slight no. I'm not gonna be mad if it makes it, but I'll say a slight no for now.
Stacey, what do you say about Saving Private Ryan?
I'm actually struggling with this one too, because it seems like it should be an obvious easy yes. I mean, it's a fantastic movie. It's not a movie that I love. I mean, I'm just not a big war movie person. It's not in my top 12, but there are still a couple in my top 12 that I think will not have been seen by enough of the panel. And it is in my what comes after that, honorable mentions. I mean, it is so good. I can't really deny that just because I don't love it. I'll say yes.
Yeah, I'm also not a really big war movie person as well. I I do like 751 enough, but just for the fact he's not really in it much, I'm going to say no. Jonathan.
This is number 3. This is funny. All right.
Do you want me to change my vote? I can
Okay.
change my vote.
No. I think I know how to make things interesting. Okay. So I too I was in a tricky situation while compiling my list together. Yes, he is the main focus of the film. They're tasked to go save Private Ryan because his three brothers are killed, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, his 3 brothers are killed at war. Okay, during the no, not the Normandy invasion because we only see one, or maybe 2 of them. I don't remember, but he is the main focus of the film. They drive the story forward. They drive the story forward, and then they speculate as to why they have to save one person, or why does one person make a difference. Now, what's very interesting is that when they do find him, it's not like a sign of relief. That was very interesting. It's more of a, okay, you found me, but it's more of like obligation as to not to abandon his post and to question why does he have to go. Mm-hmm. So there is speculation or argument as to why he is the more why he's the one person that he's sent to go home. I mean, there are reasons for sure, but it was quite fascinating as to why Spielberg doesn't go for the obvious melodrama behind that scene. And I thought that was really impactful and quite memorable, in my opinion. And I don't know, the third act, it's really the war. It's another war sequence. I don't understand why those complaint, but this is a tough one. This is a tough call for me. I think this is the toughest of this one. But because of the impact at the end, at the beginning, the bookends, I mean, it does create a powerful, impactful resolution as to like telling him that he is a good man. I mean, it did make me tear up a little bit at the end. And he did earn it, by the way. Boy. He is the force of the film. He's the crux of the film. I'm going to go yes. I'm Saving Private Ryan.
7.1 does make the list, and we go to JD for the next nomination.
I think I'm going to make Stacey happy. I was like 50-50 whether or not I was going to watch this for the first time, and it was her suggestion that I absolutely should watch this movie that made me decide to watch it for the first time, and it made my list in the 12. Rounders. Rounders, I think it's one of his earlier roles. The world of Rounders, like I could spend like another 2 hours in that kind of him and his day-to-day, kind of how the daily grind works, all the different characters. John Turturro's in an underrated role. His back and forth with Edward Norton, their tete-a-tete, and his obligation to him because he feels responsible for him being in prison. And I really, I was kind of surprised. It surprised me. So I'm going to say Rounders.
Stacey, what do you say about Rounders?
It makes me really happy that JD liked it so much that it made us top 12. It is not in my top 12. I do like it quite a bit. It is, and it's very different from a lot of Matt Damon's other movies, but it is in my top 15. And looking at what I have left there, I'll say yes.
Yeah, this is one that if I had the time, I would have. That would have been the next one that I would have watched for this. But I just haven't seen it. Jonathan, what do you say about Rounders?
This is probably the most shocking news today. I have not seen Rounders. It is high on my queue. This was the next Matt Damon movie I was going to watch for this, but boy, it was so hectic this week that there was some impromptu errands I had to run and I had to be committed to, and I just feel bad that I like, because Rounders is a movie for me. It has a interesting subplot. I like those casino films a lot, and I do like Edward Norton. And I feel bad, but I have to abstain. I'll get to it.
With that, it falls on Stephen. What do you say about Rounders?
I did not want this.
Hey, I got this 3 times.
I gotta say no, only because there's only 4 spots left.
I just didn't realize this. Yeah.
I do like the movie a lot. To me, I think the thing I liked most, it's always fun watching Malkovich chew scenery, and he does
Oreos.
Yeah.
That's the movie with the accent, right? The Russian accent.
Yes.
And he does it great. But yeah, since
Glorious accent, Hero. You're gonna love it.
All right.
I had to mention it because it surprised me.
But Stacey, we go back to you for your next nomination.
Okay. I don't know if I want to go with one that has a shot or one that's next on my list.
Next on the list. Next on.
All right. Next on my list
Up to you.
is another based on a true story. He's in a lot of those. This one he was nominated for, and that is Invictus. It's not that well seen. I like it more than most people. I am not particularly interested in rugby, nor was I particularly interested in Nelson Mandela before I watched this movie, but both storylines completely gripped me and had me interested. It's a feel-good movie in the end, and I just adore it so much.
Yeah, you'd think that me of all people has seen Invictus, considering it's about the All Blacks. But yeah, this is one I tried to find for this. I just couldn't find anywhere. So I haven't seen it.
If you were in the US, I could send you a screen pass.
Jonathan, what do you say about Invictus?
Yeah, Malcolm, I don't think you're gonna like the ending.
That is true.
Yeah.
You're gonna feel good for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, look, I know what the story's about. I know the ending.
Okay. Invictus. Clint Eastwood directed this movie, and Damon and Morgan Freeman in a great performance as Nelson Mandela. They don't have many scenes together. They have I think 2 scenes. But focusing on Damon, his performance is quite underrated because more of the focus was on Freeman that year, but also Damon was nominated. And it is kind of a straightforward sports film, but it is an inspirational film about rugby. And it's not, and we don't see many of these movies, these rugby films. But it's also like a somewhat subtle race relations film in a way. And we see them get together, both the black and the white bodyguards, South African bodyguards, playing rugby because of Mandela's driven campaign, his inspiration, and also the country getting to the top. This is going to surprise you, Stacey. I actually do like Invictus a lot, and I think it is one of the, in my opinion, one of Eastwood's better movies, directing wise. I would say the last game in that movie, I think that he could have like cut the slow-mo scenes. I think it was like a lot of slow motion in that scene, that sequence. It drove me nuts a little bit, but it is inspirational. It's a tough call because there is one movie, and I don't know if this is going to be brought up because and I don't know if y'all seen it. I think I know one person has, but that I do want to talk about. On my list, though, Invictus is actually at the bottom of the 12, so I'm gonna go yes.
Stephen, what do you say about Invictus?
I do like it. As far as if I were ranking Clint Eastwood movies, it's not top tier Clint Eastwood, but it's probably firmly in the middle. But it's kind of like in the same situation with Rounders. I like it a lot, but I don't think it's quite top tier, so I'd give it a slight no.
JD, what do you say about Invictus?
So this, I also really like this movie. I also rewatched it for this. I bought it, and it did make my top 12. So it's going to be a yes.
Hey,
that Invictus does make the list. But yeah, with that being said, it moves on to me. And I'm going to bring up one that I watched for the first time for this that I really enjoyed. I'm bringing up The Rainmaker, and this is one that it was. Funny enough, it was just put on Netflix for me this week as well. So it was just the timing really worked out. But look, this is a courtroom movie, and it's just, and I think if you're doing a list of courtroom dramas, I think this would be up there on that as well, because I think this is a really good movie, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and funny enough, I think this is probably one of the better Danny DeVito movies I've seen in a while. So yeah, I really enjoyed The Rainmaker. I think it's good, and I think it's worth your top 12. So Jonathan, what do you say about The Rainmaker?
I alluded to the movie earlier as to like, I don't know if this will be brought up, and that was it. The Rainmaker. This was one of the very few in my week I rewatched, and it was on HBO Max or Max later on. Anyway, to get away from that Max news, but The Rainmaker, this was a really interesting film because I had not seen it in a long time. I think probably the early 2000s, and I remember I was a little bit bored by it because I was a younger person, of course. But I watched this, and I think this is a more different courtroom film than you think, because I think it's more about the value of a client, and I think that that he's really honed in on his clients very well. I mean, he represents an older woman in the film, and I like that scene where he talks to one of the sons, where he's like, "Well, it's an attorney-client privilege." So, I mean, attorney-client privilege. So, you can't talk about that. And I like that scene. Yeah, and it's also another inspirational movie because he's fighting an evil insurance company that is scamming a couple with a dying son. So, and it is a very good movie. I think the only problem I had was with the romantic subplot with Claire Danes, and I thought that was unnecessary. But the focus of the movie, and Malcolm, you brought it up, is him and Danny DeVito. I think that's the best part of the movie. I think Danny DeVito does give one of his best and subtly hilarious performances. You just like him. You like him for his knowledge and his resources, even though he failed the bar exam multiple times. But yeah, I like this movie a lot. This actually, if I had not rewatched this movie this week, it would not have made my 12. But I did, and I think this is a better movie than I thought, and an underrated Coppola film for sure. So I'm going to give it a yes on The Rainmaker. Now I have to think.
Stephen, what do you say about The Rainmaker?
Yeah, this came out at a time when they were doing a lot of John Grisham adaptations. And it is really good. I think I liked almost all of those John Grisham adaptations actually, because I liked The Firm a lot. I loved A Time to Kill, and this is up there with them. But I would still give it a slight no, just because I think there's a few other Matt Damon movies that I think are even better.
JD, what do you say about The Rainmaker?
Like Hero with Rounders, if I had time to watch one more movie, it would have been The Rainmaker. Unfortunately, I didn't. I do think I would really like this movie. I'm a sucker for courtroom dramas, so I believe it would be right up my alley. It just, unfortunately, it was the one that it was the next one, but just didn't happen. So I have to abstain.
You know who's great in this? Jon Voight. Always great playing a bad guy. A villain of sorts.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
And actually, movies based on John Grisham books could be an interesting list. But with that, Stacey, it falls on you. What do you say about The Rainmaker?
Catching up. Second time it's falling on me. So. This is tough because this is one of the few movies I actually did rewatch for this because I saw it in theaters because I am old. And I remembered really liking it, but really didn't remember a lot about it. And so I did revisit it and I did still really like it. I do think it's really good. It was early in his career. It was pre-Good Will Hunting. People didn't really know who he was yet. And so him as like the rookie newbie lawyer and the kind of just coming up, he had done School Ties and Courage Under Fire and a couple small Kevin Smith things at the time. So it kind of had a slight parallel there that I really liked. But there's only 3 more spots, which is why this is so hard. And there's a couple I definitely think still belong on the list. So I'm going to have to go no, unfortunately.
But with that, we go back to Jonathan. What is your next nomination?
All right. Well, you know what? I'm just gonna bring this up because we gotta have a Bourne film on the list. I mean, I'm sorry I denied the supremacy vote, but we gotta bring up Bourne film because obviously I think people will be a little confused as to like Bourne. But I think I'm gonna go with the one that I think that started it all. Even though I like Ultimatum better, but I'm gonna go with Identity because this is the movie that made him an action star. It kind of introduced him as an action star. Yeah, look, Saving Private Ryan, like, it's kind of unfair as an action, but I know there is action, but it is war. But but this is the movie I felt like it introduced him as an action star. Like we wouldn't have like other like movies like like Green Zone, for example. I think that we wouldn't have Green Zone or True Grit without this Bourne Identity or Elysium. But but I think that this is a very interesting movie as to like how it came to be. It's like, why is he Jason Bourne? Why is he that? And it's very interesting in how they utilize Damon, and we just are hooked onto him as he's on the run with a woman played by Franca Potente. I think that's her. And they're on the run from this I
said from Run Lola Run. Isn't she from Run
I want
Lola
to watch
Run?
that. Yeah, I want to watch that movie, but soon. But yeah, he's on the run from this assassin named the Professor, Clive Owen. and it is interesting. And I think Brian Cox, Brian Cox is in it as well, and Julia Stiles. But yeah, I'll just go with the Bourne Identity, and if it's denied, someone has to bring up Ultimatum. It's fine.
Stephen, what do you say about Bourne Identity?
I love all the Bourne movies, but this one is kind of down there for me, if I'm being honest. I think I just think what Paul Greengrass does with the franchise is even though I do think Doug Liman is an underrated director. I just think Paul Greengrass takes what Doug Liman did and just I think brings it to a whole new level, especially with the action. Although I will say this does have a great car chase. So and this is and you mentioned the cast. You left out probably my favorite of all the supporting actors, and that's Chris Cooper. Yeah. But just because I think Ultimatum deserves to be on here over Identity, I will give it a slight no.
JD, what do you say about the Bourne Identity?
Here's the this is tough. This is tough because, as I said earlier, I think Ultimatum is better. I do. But I do believe a Bourne film is going to be deserves to be on the list, and I'm not going to bring up a Bourne film for my next pick, and I'm not going to bring up so it's unlikely I'm going to be able to bring up Ultimatum after. And I do think a Bourne film needs to be on the list, and I do think this is the second best one out of it's Ultimatum then Identity. So, and I think this is I do think Identity is underrated for kind of the tension. I do think when it comes to tension, it does tension the best. I think the other two movies go way more into the intense action, and this one is all like slow burn thriller. Like it's an underrated portion of it. So I'm going to give it a yes. I'll give it a yes. This is tough. It's tough. But I'll give it a yes.
Stacey, what do you say about Bourne Identity?
This is one of the couple that the reason I voted no last time is because this is one of the ones that I think Bourne needs representation regardless of what it is. Like I said earlier, I kind of mix up the sequels in my head a little bit. So I had Bourne Identity on my list as representing the franchise. And when this movie came out, like Ben Affleck was like the big kind of movie star and Matt Damon was like the character actor. And people were shocked that he was in this role. And I think that he, really showed a lot of people his versatility. The fighting style in the movie was not common at the time. And I think that it actually did a lot for the genre when it came out, as well as being a good movie. So it's an easy yes for me.
The Bourne Identity, like I prefer both the sequels to Bourne Identity myself. So, Bourne Identity is still in my top 15. It would have been a slight no for me. But
how about this? To make it fair, let's just make this the Bourne trilogy. Let's just go with that.
I'm down with that.
I mean, I'm just going to put the Identity on there, but I was about to say it's made the list regardless of what. Anyway, so
it represents all three movies. Jason Bourne is not included.
I actually love Jason Bourne, but I love all of the Bourne movies.
I think they missed out on a chance to call Jason Bourne Born Again.
I think Jason Bourne has two really good acts. It's missing a third act.
Oh, I agree.
But that being said, Bourne Identity does make this list, and we move over to Stephen.
Well, okay, since we got Identity on, I'm not going to bother bringing up Ultimatum. But I don't know if some of the other movies that I have in my top 12 have much of a chance of making it. But I'll bring up The Good Shepherd, which Robert De Niro directed 2 movies, and I love both of the movies that he's directed. And I think the arc that Matt Damon goes through in this movie is great because, you see how his job turns him into this much colder person. And yeah, I love movies like this. You even get Joe Pesci in a brief turn in this movie. So yeah, I'll go with The Good Shepherd.
Of course, Stephen brings up The Good Shepherd.
Well, the shepherd is spelled differently than my last name.
But still, JD, what do you say about The Good Shepherd?
I think it's okay. Like, I think I agree. I kind of, because it's another movie where Matt Damon kind of plays a dick, but he's the protagonist. And like I like his role in it. The problem is I just think it's way too long. It's way too, I think there are parts that are convoluted. So as much as I like, the character dynamics in the movie, I find the character dynamics interesting. It would have worked a lot better if it was like an hour and a half to 2 hours, as opposed to being a nearly 3-hour movie. That's its biggest downfall. It just got way too as a result, it just got way too convoluted for its own good. So I think I have to give it a no. But I'm glad you brought it up because I do think his part is underrated. But yeah, no, unfortunately.
Stacey, what do you say about The Good Shepherd?
So I've seen it once. When I was perusing the IMDb, I honestly couldn't remember what it was about until you just started talking about it. So I guess it was forgettable to me, but I think it was good. Like once you started talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, now I kind of remember that movie, and it was good. But just the fact that it just did not stand out to me in any way initially, I have to say no.
Yeah, I've say when making the list, I didn't realize how many movies Matt Damon is in that starts with the. But yeah, I watched The Good Shepherd for the first time yesterday.
Yes,
and yeah, I thought it was actually really good. Like, I was taken out a little bit because like I didn't realize Michael Gambon was in it. It was like, holy shit, that's Dumbledore. But aside from that, I think this is good. And so yeah, so I do this to you, Jonathan, but I'm giving it a yes. John, what do you say about The Good Shepherd?
Before I make my decision, how many times is this a record for one person to make the decision for to influence the list?
I mean,
four times.
Quite possibly. I've not been keeping track. So.
Aye. We're gonna make a note of this. Like 4 times. Jonathan Caro has made the decision to have 2 ties or 4 ties. But this is the easiest one. Look, it's directed by one of my favorite actors of all time, Robert De Niro. And yes, he has made A Bronx Tale, which is really good. But unfortunately, this was a boring film. I was very disappointed by this movie. Like, to tackle a subject about the birth of the CIA, that's exciting on paper. It's riveting. It's like, I want to see that. But when I saw this movie, I was kind of surprised of how bored I was. And yeah, JD, you're right. It is long. It is too long. It is a little convoluted to me, and it just, I was like, I was pretty much sad while watching this movie. It's like it could have been so much exciting, could have been so much interesting, learning about the birth of the CIA, and also learning about some of the supporting characters besides Matt Damon, because Matt Damon does give a good performance in the movie. And I think we have another movie coming up this year about no, not the CIA, it's about the FBI. Never mind. But the Good Shepherd. I'm sorry to say, Stephen, but it's a no from me. It's just I don't find it one of his better movies. I think it's actually one of my least favorite movies from Damon's filmography. And Jolie's actually. I don't know what Jolie was doing in the movie. I did like seeing Joe Pesci in that movie though.
And the fascinating thing about this is like they wanted to make a sequel of this. Like they were it's so Robert De Niro was so jazzed about the material that they were like planning like a whole trilogy. It's kind of it's
you know what I just thought of some, like if they had brought up Doug Liman or Paul Greengrass, like, oh man, this would have been a better, fascinating, much better paced film. I mean, no offense to De Niro's, but
but JD, what is your next nomination?
I'm vacillating between the other Ridley Scott movie, and a Mangold movie. Oof, this is tough. Do I go with what higher is on my list, or do I go with what I think is a more interesting conversation?
They're both going to be interesting conversations.
We can talk about.
I think I know which ones you're going for. Yeah.
I think I'll go to last. I'll go to Last Duel. I think the Last Duel it's recent. I'll grant it. But I do think I kind of find the whole structure of it really fascinating. Like, and also like Matt Damon. It's another Matt Damon, at least partially Matt Damon and Ben Affleck pen scripts, and like Matt Damon did his portion. Ben Affleck did the Adam Driver portion, and then Nick. I always butcher her name. Nicole.
No, it's Jodie Comer.
No.
The writer.
The writer.
Nicole
Solosiker wrote the Jodie Comer portion, and I find that so fascinating. Like, how they like the perspective of all of this. I've seen Rashomon, but I so I know what they're trying to do, but I still think like the structure of it it's a lot more subtler than like Rashomon was. Like, and I think like it's definitely, I find this like the tones between like from each perspective of these people really fascinating. And I also find fascinating that Ben Affleck at one point was going to play the Adam Driver part before going to like the Count role, and how like how different of a movie it would have been had they gone that route. I think it's a fascinating movie. It was in my top 15. And I just think it's a more fascinating. I chose what I think is a more fascinating movie.
Stacey, what do you say about The Last Duel?
I was so excited when this movie was announced and when it came out. Like the reuniting of Matt and Ben writing together, them being on screen again together. I wanted to love it so badly, and I just did not. It's not a bad movie by any means. It wasn't like a waste of my time watching it. The performances are all good. The story is good. I didn't love the structure of the story because I thought it made it much longer than it needed to be. I thought it could be reworked. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a writer or an editor, but I just thought maybe it could have been trimmed in some ways. Yeah, so I have to say no. But I wouldn't be mad at it getting on there. I mean, there's only a couple Matt Damon movies that I actually think are bad movies. So, but this just does not make my list of favorites or what I think are the better ones.
Yeah, like after hearing so much about this movie and sort of how much it touches the subjects it does, I didn't expect it to go as far as it did on those. That being said, I still think it was a good movie. This is sort of on the edge for me, but one of my top 12 has been sort of knocked out, and the other ones that I don't know if they're going to get on. So I'm going to give this a slight yes to The Last Duel. Jonathan, what do you say about The Last Duel?
Yeah. When it was announced, and I saw the images, people were laughing about it, and people were laughing at their wigs and whatnot, and it's like, oh, this is going to be a terrible, terrible movie. I saw the trailer. It's like, ooh, this is going to be an action-packed medieval film directed by Ridley Scott. I can't wait. And when I saw the movie, it's not that. It's definitely an interesting, detailed mystery that is really shocking. Yeah, it did go a lot further than I thought, and it was just, it was tough to watch. And I did like how all three sections were so detailed as to like what's different, what's going on, what's not different. And it ends with the joust, a very brutal joust between Damon and Driver. And yeah, this is an interesting movie. And I thought it was. I guess your dog doesn't agree with me. And this was one of the better films of the 2021. I thought it was a very underrated film. Like, I don't know why people were not talking about this. It was a bomb. And I think if it had come out at probably around the early 2000s, oh yeah, this would have been a big hit. Yeah, Damon is a great performance. I think Jodie Comer was the standout, but yeah, I'm gonna give it a yes. The Last Duel should be on the list. I think this is a very good movie that I think people should watch. I would warn people that it is a tough subject.
Yes.
But it is a really good movie.
And sadly, a still relevant subject.
Yes, 100%.
Yes. Yeah, it's a woman's word against, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tragedy that that's the route that she had to go in order to get any form of, yeah. And that still sadly happens today.
Yeah, I mean, this is one that I'd argue that if it sort of came out like maybe in 2022 or something like that, I think it would have been a bit. I think at the time it came out, like people were still not really interested in going to the theaters as well. So I think there was that as well. But Stephen, what do you say about The Last Duel?
So it's one that I've wanted to watch, but I just haven't gotten around to watch it. I do. I don't know. Maybe it would have been a bigger hit, but I like the fact that a movie like this came out like in the middle of the whole Me Too movement. So that makes it interesting. But I will see it eventually, but I haven't seen it.
But with that being said, it still makes the list regardless. And we go over to Stacey. What is your next movie going to bring up?
So this is one I think that people will have actually seen, and it's next on my list, and that is Ford v Ferrari.
That was the one I was going. That was the other one I was going between.
I am a sucker for based on a true story racing movies, I guess, because I also really love Rush. But I think Matt and Christian Bale are both excellent in it. I think it's, again, a compelling story that sucks me in, even though on paper it's not something I'd be super interested in. I think It's filmed great. And I just really like it. And I love their fight with the groceries. It should be the grocery fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by Ford v Ferrari. Like, this is one that I thought, oh yeah, it's a racing movie. I'm going to go and enjoy it. Think it's fine. But I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. And I think it definitely is a really good Matt Damon movie. But yeah, I'm going to make things interesting. Give it a slight no though, because there's at least one more movie that's I've got higher than that I really want to bring up. But yeah, Jonathan, what do you say about Ford v Ferrari?
I love this movie. I love this movie so much. It flew by quickly for me. That's 152 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't feel like it. It raced by very quickly. James Mangold. To be honest, I think James Mangold is the MVP because he made this so riveting. And again, I'm saying this word tonight a lot. Inspirational. You like these characters. You like what's their name? Carol Shelby and Ken Miles. You buy their friendship, even though it started out as a very funny rivalry. But you buy their friendship. They're very good friends. And it's also heartwarming. Even though Damon is very good. He plays a lot of salesman when I researched, by the way. That's just interesting. But he's very good, and he has some very good scenes with Christian Bale. Even though I think Bale definitely was the standard. I think Bale plays one of the more likable characters in recent years. I mean, him and his son and also his wife, it's just lovely. But the scene that actually stood out to me was when he was about to get fired and he just sells it to Mr. Ford. Okay, well, I'm going to, aside from the funny experiment scene where he takes Ford on a ride and Ford cries. But there's a scene in the movie where he's about to get fired and he sells the fact that actually even though it failed, they're actually close to Ferrari, scaring them. And he just says, "You're welcome." And then then Ford responds, "Go to war." Like, that's it. And basically tasks Ken Miles to race the car for the Le Mans. Yeah, this is an easy yes for me because this is such a delightful film that I just like rewatching, to be honest, because most of the scenes are standouts. And yeah, this is one of the more rewatchable films in another great year of movies, 2019. So yeah, Ford v Ferrari.
Stephen, what do you say about Ford v Ferrari?
So I'm happy that Logan and Ford v Ferrari are the move finally made James Mangold into, something big. Because I've always been a big fan of his, from Copland, Girl Interrupted, and my personal favorite movie of his is Identity.
I love Identity.
I've never seen it.
I think this movie is highly enjoyable. I enjoyed watching it a lot. Great crowd pleaser, but it is kind of formulaic and predictable. So I would have given it a slight no.
Oh boy, Jay.
JD, what do you say about Ford v Ferrari?
So I'm glad Stacey brought this up because that was the one I was vacillating between last duel. So I'm very happy. You made me a very happy person. It's my number two. It's right below The Martian for me. I think, as Carol said, I think Ken Miles and Carol Shelby's friendship is great. I think Josh Lucas always plays a great asshole. He always plays an amazing asshole. He knows how to play that cheesy swarmy dick. And to me, I do think this is an underrated Matt Damon role. Yes, Ken Miles is the more showy role, but the scene that always stands out to me is actually the last scene at the end when he visits the Miles family.
Mhm.
After Ken, at some point after Ken Miles dies in the explosion that we don't see, and for the first time ever, we see the salesman facade drop, and we see emotion, the true like Carol Shelby come through for the first time. It's just for a second, and then like the sun comes out and like he spurs back to the salesman, and it's a brilliant kind of it's an underrated performance and an underrated and a brilliant movie. Yeah, it's yes, 100% yes.
And with that
Tracy
Ford
Letts is
River,
great in this.
yeah, that Ford River makes the list and it closes out the list. Time to go into some honorable mentions. For me, Ocean's 12, 13 were up there. Born Ultimatum obviously was going to come up. If we got down to having to get something out on there, the one that I was going to bring up next, the reason I said no to 4th February, Stillwater, I think is a really good movie.
When you mentioned that, I was also going to bring that up next.
Um, even though well, and I don't know where everyone else feels about the movie, but I really liked We Bought a Zoo. I think
I
there was
love We Bought a Zoo.
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And even though he wasn't in it much, I probably would have eventually brought up Interstellar and maybe Courage Under Fire. But both those movies is really not in it a big amount. And I'm a really big fan of Legend of Bagger Vance, which I think is a very underrated Matt Damon movie. But Jonathan, what are some honorable mentions that you had?
Wow, that was funny because that was my next one, Stillwater, because I was like on the cusp of it, and if Portland was denied, that's interesting. So yeah, it would be Stillwater. It has not. I don't know. Okay, so off screen, I brought up Air, and I think Air is sensational. I think it's best of 2023 right now so far for me. I think he is terrific in the movie, and but it is really recent, so that's why I didn't bring it up. So, but check out Air, all right, please, people, check out Air. School Ties, I like School Ties. I think he plays a good a-hole in that movie. Syriana, I like Syriana. This is pretty good, and I think I'm one of the few people who like Hereafter because I thought Hereafter was an interesting movie about communicating with the dead.
Interesting.
And I thought that I wasn't very bored. I know a lot of people were bored during that movie watching that film, and I liked it. Elysium, I kind of like as well.
I like Elysium too.
Yeah, I like Elysium.
You say it sheepishly.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I had. I did not put Interstellar on there because I thought that Matt Damon was more of a surprise than it is an addition to the cast because I didn't expect Matt Damon to appear in the movie because I was watching,
Funny,
like,
he
who's
was
Dr. Man? Who's Dr. Man? It's like, oh, it's Matt Damon. Okay. And he's also kind of a quiet a-hole in that movie as well. So
I was total a-hole.
Yeah. And so yeah, that's it.
Stephen, what are some honorable mentions that you had?
Well, you guys mentioned Interstellar. There's another movie that I would have brought up, even though he also doesn't have a lot of screen time, and that's Courage Under Fire. I also probably would have brought up eventually Syriana because it's a great movie. He doesn't really stand out necessarily in that movie because it's such a big ensemble. But it's great. I love All the Pretty Horses. I think that's really underrated. And you mentioned We Bought a Zoo. I'm a sucker for Cameron Crowe movies, and I love We Bought a Zoo.
I'm so sad I didn't bring up We Bought a Zoo now. I didn't think it had a chance.
Boy, I would have been the Grinch.
And Titan AE, I think, is a great animated movie.
JD, what are some honorables that you had?
So it's funny. Stillwater was also on the cusp for me. That was also on the cusp for me. I think it's a great Matt Dillon performance. Air was also on my list. I think it's just too recent, so I was trying to avoid that at all costs, just because of even more so than Last Duel. I think Air is just too new. We Bought a Zoo also was on an honorable mention. Ball Ultimatum. If we didn't do if Identity wasn't on the list, I would have brought it. That would have come up eventually. And this is a movie that a lot of people don't like, but I do. Promised Land. It's the John Krasinski. Here's the thing. I think 2 acts of that movie. The first 2 acts is brilliant. I think Matt Damon, the actor, is really good in it. I think Rosamund DeWitt was an actor I didn't really actress I didn't really know about, and I think Matt Damon and her chemistry is really great in the movie.
Watch Rachel Getting Married. She's great. Rosemary DeWitt is great in that.
Yeah. And then Frances McDormand. I also like Matt Damon and Frances McDormand's kind of dynamic in it too. So yes, it's a bit ham-fisted, but the character dynamics, I really like the character dynamics. The character, I think, is an underrated. To me, it's underrated.
And Stacey, what are some honorable mentions that you had?
Well, obviously, We Bought a Zoo. I didn't think it had a chance, or it would have been my first pick. I love it so much. But the next one on my list that I think, I don't even know if it necessarily qualified because it's an HBO original, but it's Behind the Candelabra, the Liberace movie. Him and Michael Douglas are just both phenomenal in it. It's really good. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. One that I don't know if nobody's seen or just nobody likes, it really could go either way, but I always really like it, is The Adjustment Bureau with Emily Blunt, the weird little sci-fi movie that people don't talk about. I think that one's actually a lot of fun. I did have Air on my list also. It would have been higher up if it wasn't so new. And I had to have School Ties because that was the movie that introduced me to Matt Damon in 1992. Him and Brendan Fraser. I was like a preteen and I was all about them. And I stayed all about them. So it has to be on my list for that reason alone.
But some movies that came up in chat, Leo Logan brought up Stuck on You, which is my least favorite. I think it would have been better if it was Jim Carrey instead of Matt Damon, personally.
I enjoyed it.
Geronimo, an American Legend.
The TV movie.
I would have allowed TV movies.
Oh, okay.
Jonathan Peck said, "Thank God none of you brought up the Brothers Grimm because it's a bit awful." I don't think it's that bad. I've only seen it once. I enjoyed it.
I thought it was
not top 12, but I like it.
Yeah. Leo also brought up Downsizing.
That was a huge disappointment.
Suburbicon.
See, unless you say The Great Wall, I that's the only one I don't like. I think everything but The Great Wall I like.
And then Brian put, even though it doesn't count for Team Police.
Yeah. I will say this about School Ties. It does have a great exchange at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I do think Downsizing had potential if you shift the focus to Matt Damon to the Chinese woman that was
Hong Chow.
Yeah, Hong Chow. It was. I always forget that's Hong Chow. I always forget that's Hong Chow. Yeah, if you switch it to Hong Chow, if she was the protagonist and it was her and Matt Damon was the supporting character, and he was like that was like a side arc, that would have been. I think there would have been. You could have made it interesting. It would have been more interesting.
I don't know, to be honest.
I really like the whole end of the world turn Downsizing takes kind of out of nowhere. Like
that's why I think if it's her,
I know that probably makes it bad to some people, but it makes it interesting to me.
No, I don't hate that movie. Again, I just think it would be more. I think it had a potential to be like amazing if it was Hong Chow.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's just two
Yeah,
different movies. That's it. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I was going to rewatch Downsizing for this, I just didn't have the time.
I didn't like it.
But with that, we get to the fun type, which is ranking list. Just
Oh
to recap,
gosh, this is gonna be hard.
This
Just
is
to
a tough
recap-
list. This is
It's really tough.
just to recap the list, we've got Good Will Hunting, The Martian, Talented Mr. Ripley, Ocean's 11, Contagion, Dogma, The Departed, Saving Private Ryan, Invictus, The Bourne Identity, The Last Duel, and Ford v Ferrari.
wow.
Um,
Almost all
but-
bangers, to be honest. Oh,
Yeah. Wow. It's banger after banger. But
This is hard. This is really hard.
But Jonathan, what do you have for 12?
this is a great group of movies. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But I put Invictus.
Stephen, what do you have at 12?
I also put Invictus.
JD,
I put Dogma.
Stacy.
I have The Last Duel.
Just because it's not in it much, I put Saving Private Ryan, but Invictus is going to be 12.
Well, at least it got on the list.
Yeah, I think Invictus is really good. I like it a whole lot.
And surprisingly, that was the only one that I've never not seen that made the 12 as well. But Stephen, what do you have at 11?
Contagion.
JD,
Still Dogma.
Stacy,
I also have Contagion.
Saving Private Ryan, Jonathan.
Contagion.
Contagion is going to be Contaged at 11. But JD, what do you have for 10? Is it still Dogma?
Saving Private Ryan.
Stacy.
I'm back to The Last Duel.
I'm still got Saving Private Ryan. Jonathan.
This is a masterpiece, but because Damon's not in it as much, I just vowed it to be in the top 10 at least. So I put Saving Private Ryan.
Stephen.
I put Ford v Ferrari.
But 7 Private Ryan is going to be 10.
You know what? No.
But Stacy, what do you have for
Sticking with The
No.
Last Duel. I think it's the only one I voted no on the list.
I've got Talented Mr. Ripley, Jonathan.
A little low. Dogma.
Stephen.
Well, because it's the first one and not Ultimatum, I put Bourne Identity.
And JD.
I went back to Dogma.
Dogma is going to be number 9.
Okay.
Dogma is definitely one that was highest on my list. They're the ones that made it.
Tough.
Mm.
I think if I watch it a few more times, I think it has a shot climbing up for me.
Yeah. No, that's it. But for me, I've still got Talented Mr. Ripley. Jonathan.
The Last Duel.
Stephen.
I stayed with Bourne Identity.
JD.
Just by process of elimination, again, this is tough. I did Ocean's 11, but
And Stacy.
I stuck with The Last Duel. And I don't know what to do now because I have to pick something else.
The last,
Don't know how to do
last
that.
choice. Yeah.
This is hard.
Ridiculous.
Okay.
And I'm first, aren't I? Damn it.
Yep. Stacey, what do you have for 7?
I don't have one yet. All right,
Like
I'm just
children.
writing down the first one my eyes saw on the list. Ocean's 11.
Ooh,
I'm sticking with talented Mr. Ripley. Jonathan.
The Bourne Identity.
Stephen.
I went back to Ford v Ferrari.
JD.
I went to talented Mr. Ripley.
No.
Oh,
That's a heartbreaker.
I had to go back. I didn't think I had to vote for Ocean's 11. I didn't want to do it. I just didn't think I had to vote, and there are other ones I liked more on this list.
Wow.
That was number 3. Oy.
Yeah, that was my number 3 too.
Yeah,
It definitely would have been higher for me if I felt I had to vote for Ocean's 11. I didn't. Sorry, Carol. But I know what I'm going to do now.
Oh, I have to write something. Huh?
Right. But for number 6, I've got Ford v Ferrari. Jonathan.
Bourne.
Stephen.
I kept Ford v Ferrari.
JD.
Ocean's 11.
And I stayed with Ocean's 11.
Damn it!
So it's down to you again.
So Jonathan, Ford v Ferrari or Ocean's 11 at 6?
Which will not break the top 5. Ford v Ferrari.
Ford v Ferrari is going to be 6. And just to recap what we've got left, we've got The Bourne Identity, Departed, Ocean's 11, The Martian, and Good Will Hunting. Jonathan, what do you have for 5?
Yeah, I'll stick with Bourne.
Stephen.
Bourne Identity.
JD.
Ocean's 11.
Stacey.
I just stayed with Ocean's 11.
But the
Could have
Bourne
gone
Identity.
really either way.
Okay.
You guys are making it so I don't have to rewrite things, so that's nice.
But we have to think. Think harder. All these 4 or 5 star movies.
All right, Stephen, what do you have for number 4?
I think there's a good spot for Ocean's 11.
JD.
Ocean's 11.
Stacey.
Ocean's 11.
I put The Martian, Jonathan.
I put The Departed.
But Ocean's 11 is going to be number 4.
Which one?
JD, what do you have for 3?
The Departed.
Stacy,
This has been my easiest decision so far because of 1 and 2, The Departed.
The Martian. Jonathan,
What does Steven have? That's what I want to know.
Stephen, what do you have?
The Martian.
Crap. Okay. I forced myself to do this a 6th time now.
So I'm guessing you didn't have either.
Departed.
Martian's going to be at least 2. I'm very excited about that. I didn't think that had a shot at like 1 or 2.
We do our number 1 now, right?
Yeah, go straight to the number 1. Which means I actually need to change my board, otherwise I...
And
This is either going to be really unanimous or there's going to be at least
it's
one.
not going to be
dissented.
unanimous. Person's face.
But Stacey, what do you have for number 1?
Well, I love these movies equally. So this is very much a Sophie's choice, but I'm a Massachusetts girl, so I had to go Good Will Hunting.
I went Good Will Hunting. Jonathan,
Good Will Hunting.
Stephen,
Good Will Hunting.
JD.
Doesn't matter. I went to Martian.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, JD.
That's why.
It's fine. I didn't think it had a shot at 1 or 2 at all. I thought it was going to be. I thought it had a shot at top 5, but I didn't think in a million years it would end up being the top 2. So I'm fine with it.
Honestly, I'm just glad Good Will Hunting's a hometown movie because it was the only way I could pick one.
No, the reason why I picked The Departed at 3 is because I think mostly it's Leo's movie, and I think The Martian is more Matt's movie, so that's why.
Well, I mean that's fair. But that being said, we've reached the end. Our top 12 Matt Damon movies is we've got at 12 we've got Invictus, at 11 we've got Contagion, at 10 we got Saving Private Ryan, at 9 we got Dogma, at 8 we got The Last Duel, at 7 we got The Talented Mr. Ripley, at 6 we got Ford v Ferrari, at 5 we got The Bourne Identity, at 4 we got Ocean's 11, at 3 we got The Departed, at 2 we got The Martian, and number 1 we got Good Will Hunting.
Really good.
It's a good list. The topic for next week is going to be movies featuring vampires. But Jonathan, where can people find you online?
All right. This was a great show. You can find me on my Instagram and Letterboxd, Instagram Cine.Caro and Letterboxd Cinecaro. You can find me on Twitter at JohnCaro4. Yeah, you can find me on the YouTubes whenever I can show up. I mean, my time is kind of iffy right now, but thank you for having me, and thank you for having us. This was a great topic to discussing one of the more charismatic actors right now.
But Stephen, where can people find you online?
You can find me, in all of the social media stuff. I'm basically in all of them. Just my name for the most part. I think on Facebook is just my name. On Instagram, it's Steven Shepard 82. On Letterboxd, it's S Shepard 82.
JD, where can people find you online?
You can find me at JD Nomash. I am, I occasionally guest on things. So, and I'm a regular in an MCU Trivia League at the Dill Pickle Movie Network. Malcolm, you also frequent that, as well as Stacy.
And Stacy, where can people find you online?
I'm hoping here next weekend. Vampires. I don't know what the policy of 2 in a row is, but if that's allowed, I'm putting in for it here now. But no, I'm at Stacy LM78 on like all the socials but Facebook, which is just my name. And I pop up, like JD said, at MCU Trivia, another show over at Dill Pickle called Draft Day. Sometimes I judge Movie Battleground, and I have a podcast called Between the Screens that's all about movies and TV that you can find where you find podcasts.
But yeah, you can find me hosting Rankin every Sunday. As I said earlier, next week's going to be top 12 movies featuring vampires. You can find me hosting the Oscar show Gone with the Wind every now and then. It's on hiatus at the moment. It's probably going to come back for the next couple of months as we start sort of heading into award season again. And yeah, I've host trivia over on Full Metal. And yeah, you can find me sort of popping up wherever there's trivia, tournaments, brackets, anything. But with that being said, from all of us here, and yeah, that is the end of it today. And yeah, keep listening shit.
David Krumholtz, his show is called Numbers, Friday nights at 10 on CBS. Sincere apologies to Matt Damon. We ran out of time for him tonight. We'll get him on the air again soon. Apologies to Matt Damon. We ran out of time. Matt Damon, apologies. We ran out of time. Matt Damon, apologies. We ran out of time. Apologies to Matt Damon. We ran out of time.